Joe Rogan, who's got millions of followers. He had on a comedian. He had this woman on talking about lots of other things, but she talked about her cesarean and they started talking about home birth.
Home birth is weird because if something goes sideways.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrifying to me.
And said a lot of things that I would consider to be misleading, misinformation.
And when you look at the actual statistics, I'm like, I think it's like 50% of them end up going to a hospital.
I have no idea where she got that statistic from. Most of the time when we transport, it is a non-emergent transport, but these are not emergencies. And it's definitely not 50%. My statistic for first-time moms is 10% or 8%, depending on the year. A true emergency is less than 1%. Women who have already had a vaginal delivery, what we call multips, it's usually less than 1%.
In my own practice, with first-time breech moms, the transport rate is 20%. Transport rate for multips with breeches or any baby in my practice is essentially 1%. But it's nowhere near that. And then when somebody, again, who's on an iconic show like Joe's show says that 50% of women who try to birth at home are going to end up being transported, it's not misinformation. It's not gaslighting.
You can have your opinion. You can have your preferences of what you personally would like to do. But when you say things like that and say that it's a statistic, it is irresponsible.
That's the word I was looking for. Irresponsible. I understand how it could digress easily when you have two comedians having a conversation about something that probably makes them both uncomfortable that don't know a lot about. I mean, if they want to give opinion, that's fine. But you're right. When they quoted statistics or whatever, and people need to understand also who are listening, a lot of the people who wrote me were flabbergasted about this. And, you know, I would like to tell them to maybe calm down a little bit too. It's just Joe Rogan.
But unfortunately, Stu, that is those of us who are like trying to get traction in this world of having the general population be able to hear what are the statistics, what are the realities, what are your rights? Something like that, this flippant comment that comes out on somebody's podcast who's got millions of followers, it sets us back 20 years.
There is a responsibility, and Joe Rogan should probably have somebody on to counter that conversation.
So one last thing that I want to talk about, they started talking about vaginal birth after cesarean. He said, will they let you do that?
Because you can't have vaginal birth after you have a C-section.
Well,
right?
you can. It's called a VBAC. It's a vaginal birth after cesarean. And so nowadays you can.
When did that change?
Pretty recently, I think.
A big problem with that, right? They can't let you do that, right? You can decide that you're going to have your baby through your vagina anytime that you decide you want to do that. These are all completely inaccurate and totally mislead people.